Service is what you do. Hospitality is how you make people feel.
The hospitality is a feeling. It's a perception of the client, an experience of the client.
People don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. You can be so humble that you're not memorable. One size fits one. Each person's unique. Each scenario is unique. And how I will treat them is going to be unique. And the first killer of hospitality and default aggression is shyness. Shyness shows up to the client as hesitation, as doubt in your own mind.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your host, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you again. Looking forward to another great episode. This week, we're going to be talking about a perhaps less familiar topic than our show is used to, but one that is very much important, and that is around the idea of hospitality. We're going to focus on some concepts, and I'm sure we'll talk about a book or two, and one of those is one of my favorites. We'll get to that in a second, but it's going to be a good show, and we're going to be talking about that for the reasons of understanding the difference between service and hospitality and why both of those things really matter to you as you are driving to your call right now. Before we get to that great topic, though, we're going to have a little bit of an introduction, as always, just the two of us kicking it off here. I'm going to start off with a quote from Brian.
Will Guidara, author of Unreasonable Hospitality, said, "Service is what you do. Hospitality is how you make people feel."
Yeah, and such a slight change of what we're talking about. I would say a lot of people would put hospitality and service as close synonyms, or at least somewhat similar definitions. But the way he's phrasing it there, I think, is really important to how we frame today's discussion. And that the hospitality is a feeling. It's a perception of the client, an experience of the client. Yes, service is generally how that feeling results, or what occurs to make the feeling result. Specifically, the right kind of service. But hospitality, when I think of hospitality, I think of like my grandma's kitchen and the smell of like homemade bread in the air, and a warm hug and a friendly table and great memories. That's like the first thing that comes to mind in hospitality. And so much of that is what service and the service industry is about, although you may not necessarily picture yourself as producing hospitality, which is why I think
or practice it for that matter
for this show. Yeah, good point, Brian.
Yeah, I saw the contrast there myself here recently as I was speaking at the South Carolina Association of Licensed Trades conference in Myrtle Beach this past weekend. A snowstorm hit, or was scheduled to hit. So I was speaking Friday morning and then Saturday afternoon, and a snowstorm was going to roll in Saturday evening. So like a couple minutes before I walk up on stage, they say,
South Carolina?
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Snowstorm. Okay, got it.
Right, yeah. So a couple minutes literally before I walk on stage, lady calls me and says, "Hey, just so you know, we're going to cancel tomorrow. So you might want to pack, move some of your talk from tomorrow." And I'm like, yeah, that literally changes everything that I would do, because 45 minutes day one is going to be getting to know me, why you should take my advice, so to speak, maybe my credentials, tell some stories, getting to know you. And then day two would be the structured content that I'm delivering, right? So I had to do so I said, like, well, I'm going up in like a couple minutes. Could I have maybe a few extra? And they're super cool. Like, the Scalt people are super great. Everybody I met in South Carolina, they're just super gracious people. They're good hosts. They're very hospitable. They're like, yeah, 15 minutes. I'm like, cool. So I took 10 of them.
Never tell Brian Burton he can have 15 minutes.
Yeah, so I took 40.
Drag you off that stage.
No, the 15 was to prep. Like, give me a few extra minutes to take my
I got you.
talk from tomorrow and cram it into my talk from today and still make it the same 45 minutes. And I think I did all right with it, although it was pretty short notice. But Ellen Rohr was there, which I thought was awesome. I love spending time with Ellen. And she's like, I'm out of here now. Like, she was leaving before the storm got there. And I'm like, me too. I'm like, calling my wife, and I'm like, they canceled tomorrow. I'm getting a flight out this evening. 0 flights available to anywhere connecting to Phoenix. And I'm just like, okay. Well, 0 flights out of Myrtle Beach was the problem. So I booked the first one the next morning. It's like 8 a.m. Layover in Charlotte. Now, the snow was supposed to hit Charlotte first, so I was a little concerned about that. Right before I go to bed, they cancel that flight. And then they rebook me with a layover in Philly. And I'm like, all right, I can work with that because the storm isn't hitting Philly. And Nate can like bring me some Sarah's homemade dinner or something.
There you go. Yeah.
So I wake up to them canceling that flight, and then FAA grounding all flights into or out of Myrtle Beach, despite the fact that it's sunny and 40 degrees all day. The first snowflake hit at like 7 o'clock at night. And then they grounded the next day. And then, so I ended up there from Thursday to Monday so that I could speak for 45 minutes on Friday. And I was by myself. Now, here's the thing. The good people of Scalt like covered the hotel, which I thought was just amazing of them. And the hotel staff probably switched from service at the Marriott Grand Dunes to hospitality, in that it's the same people the whole time. Like, I believe like only managers there for the storm. They've got rooms there themselves so that they weren't having to travel back and forth. And I would just see the same people the whole time. They remembered my name. They remembered my room number. Like, when the guys would bring my food up, you know, I did a lot of room service, obviously. They would know my name and tell me, oh, you're going to like this one. They all, when I would call down, they knew to bring me my chocolate lava cake with the extra vanilla bean. And then a little celebration before Scalt, because I was trying to get fit for it. I lost 17 pounds in 15 days with my fairly extreme dieting, although I was still getting about 180 grams of protein a day, but only eating 2 to 4 hours a day, half hour of cardio before an hour of weights, and cranked the steps back up to at least 10,000 steps a day by taking long walks on Zoom calls, which I try to do throughout the day. But yeah, cut down 17 pounds in 15 days. And that just tells you how much extra weight your boy was walking around with. 2 weeks, 17 pounds. And I put about 6.5 of them back on at the hotel, where I couldn't go outside because it's like 16 degrees.
God bless the lava cake.
20 mile an hour wind. Yeah. 16 degrees, 20 mile an hour wind. I went down to the beach one time, took a quick selfie, sent it to my wife and kids. Wish you were here. Hoodie like drawn, you know, where the hood's like around my face, and ran back up to the hotel because it was a long walk and it was cold. And all I had was a hoodie. I don't like own a coat anymore. Yeah. Because I get back home to Phoenix February 2nd and it's 84 degrees and sunny. God bless this place. He did. He already did. Yeah. So there was an extreme amount of hospitality shown, in that, I guess for them, they look at it as a very stressful situation when you get stuck at a place like that. And there were some parts of it that were very stressful. I had things that I needed to be doing. And Amelia decided to sit this trip out somewhat last minute because it was such a short trip, but long flights. You know, that flight is just kind of grueling. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be in and out. No problem. But yeah, I was just solo the whole time. So I caught up on some shows. I wrote Waste No Day intros and social media reels and Thursday Q&A topics and Wiser Wednesday topics. I think I'm good for 2026. I may be actually good for the entire year. Every time I didn't have something to do, I popped the iPad open and just got to spilling my thoughts out on paper. But what I experienced at this Marriott, and I got to get on there and leave them a review. Don't let me forget to do that, buddy. Hold me accountable there. Is the difference between how they were when I got there, which is fine. The service is great there. But to quote Will Guidara in the book, it was service, right? It's what they do. Versus the hospitality of me being there after the event, which became hospitality, which to him means how they made me feel. And they made me feel like Kevin from Home Alone 2, right? Now, they knew him for different reasons. They all were trying to catch him. But for me, it was, they all knew my name. They all had a smile when I was coming through. I'm not like complaining or whining. Like I kept saying, like, believe you me, I've been stuck in worse places. Right? Spent a few days in county jail in Las Vegas. I spent a day in jail in Detroit. I was in rehab for 14 months. Like, I grew up in Southwest Detroit. Went to a Detroit public school. Like, you know, I've been stuck in some bad places. The Marriott Grand Dunes, not one of those places. This was fantastic.
Yeah.
But I did get a little stir crazy and just a little maybe lonely at some point where I was ready to leave. Pretty ready to leave. But got some cool pictures of snow all over the beach from my balcony. So that'll go up somewhere.
Well, speaking of reviews, Brian, which I will try to remember that you need to write them a review. That is a natural segue into the part of the show where we enjoy reading a review that someone else has written. And we do this because of the same reason that actually the hotel desires those reviews. Not only is it great feedback on their service and hospitality, but it also helps promote their business, which that actually works the same for our podcast as well. The more reviews, the more 5-star reviews, the more promotion we get. So, Brian, who are we highlighting today?
Before we do, I sent you a little email I got from Spotify, Spotify creators, about how Waste No Day is killing it on Spotify, right? And we always talk about Apple because it's where you can leave a written review. Although you can leave one on Audible too, but you have to listen to 2 full episodes before they let you. So go do that, please. But Spotify is growing like crazy fast. We're doing really well on Spotify, and we don't give them much love. So for all the people checking out the show, sharing the show, following the show, which I don't really know what that means, but I guess maybe you press the plus button or something. And commenting on the show, on the episodes on Spotify. Thank you. Thank you for having a crappy phone with no Apple podcast app and still figuring out how to go waste no day, even though you wasted a phone purchase.
I'm impressed that
so we're gonna have
Mama Burton.
We're gonna have video episodes.
Mama Burton knows how to hit the replay, like the same track over and over again as many times as these stats are showing. So thanks, Mama Burton.
Let me tell you who's not playing Waste No Day. Anyone with the last name Burton. Sure you. If you think you get enough of me, bro, just imagine. So appreciate you guys giving us some love on Spotify and any platform you're listening to the show. Big thanks to you. But with no further ado, elevate your mind and win the day. 5 stars. So glad to finally find a podcast that I can listen to not only while driving, but while performing my work. Ronnie over at Mr. Rooter, St. George, Utah, got me onto you guys, and y'all are doing amazing work. I've been in the plumbing trade for 13 years and able to provide for my 5 kids and wife. I've always been into self-development and have listened to many great speakers that you guys have had on the show. In just the 2 weeks I've listened to you guys, I've already noticed major differences in my service and life. I'm working on applying this knowledge into my virtual plumbing assistance lead finder plumbing hotline USA. One day I will be on your podcast. Look forward to meeting you guys. Keep up the amazing work. The trade and young men need to be listening to this podcast if they want to elevate their lives. David Starr, Plumbing Hotline USA. It's got to be the David Starr from Blue Collar Closer, right? Starr with two R's. So David Starr put his money where his mouth is. He's been a member of Blue Collar Closer for several months. He's on just about every live call we do. And at this point, we're doing 4 a week. Monday role play, Wednesday role play, Wiser Wednesday in the morning, Thursday Q&A in the evening. And he might be on all of those calls. And he just secured his ticket to boot camp, the real boot camp this time, which is March 19th and March 20th, Thursday, Friday, Wild Horse Pass Casino here in Phoenix. Phenomenal spot. It's where we had the first boot camp. Going to have a much bigger room this time. Can't wait. And it's a really fun place to hang out for a few days and learning. Get your boot camp on, get your fun on. Do not get your drink on, at least not until Friday night, and check with your people to make sure that's cool. But if you're staying until Saturday, yeah, do what you want. But don't be coming into boot camp hungover, because you are going to hate when I realize you're hungover and pick on you ridiculously on that stage. And that is exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. So if you're interested in boot camp, March 19th and 20th, it is fully booked. The event is booked. Tickets are available. The hotel discount, we got a great group rate on the hotel rooms, is only available until February 15th, which might be
after this episode.
Yeah, might want to get on that. Yeah, so 19th, February 19th, it's available till. So hurry up, get your ticket, get your hotel booked, and come and hang. We're going to learn. You're going to make more money. You're going to become a better communicator. You're going to get on a stage with well over 100 fellow technicians, salespeople, managers, owners, dispatchers, CSRs. Who else was there at the last one? Yeah, the last one was a fun one in Fort Lauderdale, because we had CSRs, dispatchers, owners. Kristen Lewis, owner of Mr. Sparky, was there. Yeah. It's a good time. She's a blast. Yeah, so we'll see you there, March 19th and 20th. If it's on the website now, go to wastenoday.com, click boot camp, or scroll down a little bit and you can click on Blue Collar Closer if you want to get a look at that. We got a little video on the main page, tells you a little bit about it, but you don't need to know about it. You just need to know that guys that are in there are making way more than they're spending to be a member of Blue Collar Closer, because you got phenomenal training, proven training that works. They're surrounded by a network of well over 300 fellow techs and salespeople and managers and owners who are pushing each other and celebrating each other. It's all positivity. It's super fun. And you'll definitely see a massive return on that investment. So check it out. wastenoday.com. Boot camp, Blue Collar Closer. Email us. Say what's up. Thank you for the reviews. Thank you for being so real about your career, David Starr. We appreciate you, bro.
For sure. And Brian, I know that you'll do a great job of making people feel hospitable at the boot camp. That's a talent of yours.
Yeah.
And we are going to use that as a nice segue to jump into the meat of the show. As it's just the two of us, we're going to continue the conversation around hospitality. Now, specifically, we're focusing on the idea of what makes things hospitable or how they can become hospitable. But we're going to come at it from the opposite angle, meaning what are 3 killers of hospitality? And so we're going to jump into this and just kind of give a little context here around the idea of some of these things. When I think of hospitality, and I kind of already used my grandma's kitchen and like those types of things, but there's warmth to it, right? And there's a genuineness. And hospitality can be felt with or without an exchange of payment. For example, somebody can invite you over for a Sunday afternoon lunch or dinner or whatever, and like you're not paying anything, and like you feel very hospitable. Or you can go to the Ritz-Carlton and pay $1,000 a night, and it can still feel very hospitable. But of course, the opposite can occur too, where you spend nothing and you feel very much like this is abrasive and this is not warm and this is very much just an exchange of services. Even if you're not actually paying for something, it just feels that way. And you can also pay a significant amount of money and the same thing can occur. So I want people to get that out of your head that, like, yes, we are in the service industry, and generally the exchange of cash or payment is part of the deal. But that doesn't really matter when it comes to hospitality. It's far more about you as a person and how you are interacting with the homeowner and how you are making them feel. So, Brian, why don't we jump into the first killer of real hospitality, which is shyness.
The first killer of true hospitality, I would say, is shyness. And little backstory on how we came up with this episode. The experience in Myrtle Beach over the weekend had me really thinking about the book Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. And read it, listened to it again. One thing I would do to keep myself sane and not get too bored was I'd go down to the gym, which one issue I have with that hotel. They have some dumbbells. They have like a rack, with like the pin weights and the pull down and stuff. And 0 machines, no Smith machine, no leg machine, none of that stuff that all of the Marriotts have, just bikes and treadmills. So I haven't really lifted a weight. Like I went from Wednesday to Tuesday without really lifting a weight. That was a long time for me. It's hard to stay me
4.5 stars
motivated. And yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sorry. That's going to cost you guys. There's no excuse for that in 2026. I'm sorry. It is what it is. So yeah, other than that, no real complaints, but I'd go down and I would just put the treadmill on a high incline and I'd walk and try to get my steps in, regardless of the fact that I couldn't go anywhere. And then I turned, because I think I told you how I get 30 minutes of cardio every morning. I can't make myself do the same thing for 30 minutes staring in the same direction. I can't fathom that kind of thing. Like I'm too chaotic, I guess. So I walk in, I'll sit on the bike for 10 minutes. I keep my heart rate over 130. I'll get up quickly, move over to a treadmill. I'll put it on incline. And then I'll walk and still heart rate over 130. And then I'll flip. So 10 minutes there, 10 minutes there. And then I'll flip around backwards. And I'll walk uphill on that treadmill backwards for 10 minutes. All the while, heart rate over 130. So that's how I get 30 minutes of cardio as a person who hates cardio and hates doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then get done and I go hit my weights. And if I leave the house on time in the morning, I have an hour. I got a half hour for cardio. I got an hour to lift, roll out at 6, go home, kiss everybody, get ready, get to the shop for the 7:00 meeting. And that's what my morning looks like. So in the hotel, I had some the hand straps and the bar push downs and stuff. but mostly it was the treadmill. And I listened to Unreasonable Hospitality again, thinking about that experience and thinking about how to translate this into conversations with you, lovely people listening right now, and my teammates in Phoenix, and the amazing people in the Blue Collar Closer group and boot camp and whoever else I speak to, right? And then just wildly out of nowhere last night, which was my first night back home, Monday night, Danny Jones, our VP of Ops here, texts me and Kyle Brewer and just says, like, bro, we need to get back to focusing on Unreasonable Hospitality. I did not tell those guys I was listening to that book again. We need to get back to focusing on Unreasonable Hospitality. We're getting real reasonable with our hospitality over here. And I'm like, yes, bro. Yes. And he's like, let's make some trainings out of this. And I'm like, done and done, sir. Now I don't want to get too happy about Danny right now because he missed the meeting the next morning. Rolled out. So as I was thinking about how to put it our way, in a way that would make it feel a little bit different than me reading out of Will's book, I said I want to make it home services focused, right? What we do. And maybe work it backwards. Like, what are the main things that I feel like keep us from delivering unreasonable hospitality? Another reason I don't want to go too heavy on his book is I reached out to his team and maybe him personally today, possibly, and asked, nay, begged for Will Guidara to come on the show. And let me tell you guys something.
Yes, please.
I don't think I've made this point this hard with any other author that's been on the show. And most of the authors of the books we talk about on this show have been on this show at this point, right? It's Chris Voss, Tommy Mello, it's Dr. Robert Cialdini, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, Jocko Willink, right? Tim Kennedy. I don't know. Who am I leaving out, buddy? Oh, Brian Smith.
Lieutenant Scott Mann.
Founder of UGG Boots.
Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann.
Who? Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, who's got a new book coming out in May. Yeah, and he's coming back on the show because he's got a new book coming out in May. Yeah, and a lot of people. Hardy. But this one, Dr. Benjamin Hardy has wrote like 5 of my favorite business books of all time. But I'll say this about this one. You almost can't get away with not reading Unreasonable Hospitality and be in the business of serving people in their homes. In my opinion, I'm so serious about that book as I read it again. And the stories they tell, and I won't tell any of his, I'll tell our own. But some of the stories he tells in that book of how they went from serving to hospitality, and the small little differences and changes that they made to have such a massive impact and accomplish the things they accomplished, will blow your mind. And it will tilt your mind in a direction of, how am I making the people we serve feel? Right? And you start digging in on that, and everything's going to change and everything's going to get a lot better. So I can't stress enough, I need you guys to read Unreasonable Hospitality if you have not read it. Get the audiobook, press play, and get on your treadmill or bike or run or whatever and listen to it and just let it play. So definitely get the book. So I said, from when I was in a truck and struggling to really connect with my clients and be who I wanted to be, to now that I'm training young technicians and salespeople and apprentices to serve at a high level, what are the things that stood in the way? Like, what were the things that stopped this thing from happening, despite the fact that we all want it to happen, right? You want to go have such an impact on your clients that they make social media video posts about you, right? You want to, but you don't. And there are things that you could do even yesterday that you didn't do. And what are some of the things that keep us from doing it? Now, two of them, number 2 and number 3, are heavily addressed in the book. And I just kind of put the counterpoint to them. But number 1 is one that I don't think was really addressed, but this is more of a one-on-one thing for us in the home services. And he's dealing with teams in a restaurant, is shyness. Is timidity a word? Timidness?
It is.
Timidity. Being timid, right? It's holding back because we don't want to seem awkward or be intrusive or get embarrassed or elicit the wrong emotion from the client. So we shrink up, we shrivel back, and we pull away in the moment, oftentimes where they need us the most. And that one reminded me of a story of a guy named Jonathan who used to work for Nate and me in Pennsylvania. And I don't remember the full story, but I remember the big details. He's at the house of like a 90-year-old lady. And it wasn't the most loving, tender conversation with this lady. She was somewhat reserved, and I don't know if difficult's the right word, but like not that into the conversation. And I remember talking to Jonathan after we had spoken to this client. And I said, tell me what happened, And as he's talking, he's saying things like, yeah, she was withdrawn and reserved, and like she just wasn't picking up what I was putting down and didn't seem that interested. And then it just kind of struck me that she almost seemed depressed. And this was 5-6 years ago. You don't even know. Do you know the story I'm talking about? Yeah, 5-6 years ago, right? And that word stuck with me because you're looking on another level. Because how are you listening? How are you going about it with a difficult client? It's whatever. I'll get to the next one. I don't care. Sit in your hot air in the summer. It's fine. I got air conditioning at my house. Like whatever it is, you just go, all right, be difficult then. But Jonathan said, she seemed depressed. And then it was like, if this was my grandma, how would I want some technician at her house to treat her? And he said, well, I would want him to ask what's up. So I did. Sat down next to her and I said, hey, are you okay? You seem maybe like a little sad. And I don't know what all conversation happened between, but he ended up finding out that I think this was on a Friday and it was like Labor Day on Monday or 4th of July on Monday or something like that, right? This wasn't like Thanksgiving. And came to be that she wasn't getting with any family and just was kind of on her own. So Jonathan was at his family barbecue and he made 2 plates of food and he jumped in his service truck and he drove to her house and he gave her a plate and he sat with her and ate his 4th of July barbecue dinner with her. And she called to tell the story and, bawling her eyes out and how much she loved Jonathan. He actually got calls like that with people saying they literally loved him pretty often. This wasn't rare for Jonathan. And this does bring me to another one of the points, or we'll touch on it, but that is how much shyness do you have to master to sit beside someone who's you don't know, who's not being very hospitable in their own home, and decide you're going to break that wall down by asking them if they are okay? That's not what we do, technicians, is it? We take our ball and go home. Like, I can post in a Facebook group of techs right now and just not waste no day, obviously, but like, you know, one of the crappy ones, all the other ones, and say, what do you do when a client's giving you attitude? And I guarantee you the first 10 comments will be, leave. I got other people waiting for me, bro, because they're so tough. It's the answer of the least tough person on the planet. Like, you couldn't sound weaker to a man, right? But you sound like you're beating your chest, but you just sound like a kid sucking his thumb with a tear coming down his eye because you were wounded by a 90-year-old woman. But it takes a lot of courage and self-mastery to say, like, I'm getting to the bottom of this, or maybe I'm not, and I'm going to get thrown out in a low review. But for her sake, I'm going to ask, right? I'm going to pop the question and leave caution to the wind. So the opposite of what he did do, which was unreasonable hospitality and a client for life, would have been shyness, to back away and be reserved and be cautious with the moment and not ruffle feathers. And you know, Logan Altland, the $3 million electrician who's on the show often, master of this. Master. If he sees it, he says it. If he feels it, he mentions it. And he does it in a kind way, so he doesn't get complaints, but he does it. He does it every time. He never lets the moment pass. And a lot of guys have clients crying when they're empaths like this. Logan's one of those few guys who cries with the client because he feels them like that deeply, you know. I can't say I ever did that. When people started crying, I wanted to jump out a window and jam a shard of glass in my arm on the way down. Just, please stop. Very uncomfortable with the tears. Yeah, so that's it. On one end, you have shyness. On the complete opposite end, you have unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah, and I think there's reflecting upon that, Brian. I think there's different that can display itself differently, and really what I think the general emphasis is being willing to become uncomfortable. Like, I think you can still be a shy person by nature, but if you're truly trying to deliver a hospitable experience, right, you may need to push yourself out of that comfort zone. You may need to ask uncomfortable questions or have uncomfortable conversations, or just even like sit in silence uncomfortably when that's what the moment requires. And it is about delivering the experience of hospitableness, which is going to take on a lot of different flavors and perspectives. Like, again, hospitality can be in somebody's backyard for a 4th of July picnic, or in a 100-story high rise in a hotel in downtown Philadelphia. Like, it can exist in many different places and it can look differently. But is the person that you're serving, are they feeling that you are trying to deliver that hospitality, which is really, frankly, so craved in today's world? It's become a lost art in many ways. You know, I mean, my mom is a fantastic cook, and, you know, she invites us over for every major holiday and sometimes in between and whatnot. And like, she goes all out. You know, there's name tags at every spot. And sometimes there's like a little craft or a little candy or something like that she specifically made, or she folds the napkins in a certain way. And, you know, she knows, like, hey, these grandkids, they like this particular food, and those grandkids like that particular food. And like, she takes the time to prepare a meal that is going to try to please everybody, which is all but impossible. And yet somehow Mama Minnick always does it. And like it's the little things. And I would not say that my mom is, you know, an outgoing, gregarious person. Like, I don't know that she's shy, but she's more reserved. But even within that reservation, she can position herself to invite people into her home and welcome them. Like, this is kind of the inverse of what the home services is, the other direction. Like, she's inviting people into her home and guests and making them feel like a part of the family. Whereas like in the home services industry, we're kind of reversing that process, going into their home and trying to make them feel like we're part of their family, right? Like we're treating them like that. And so I think that, just to kind of circle back on what you're saying there, Brian, I agree that there's a level of putting yourself out there and pushing past the borders that a shy person would generally struggle with. But I also don't think you have to be Brian Burton either, on a level of like extrovert and super high I and all these types of things to provide hospitality. It can be delivered in many
And lucky
different
you
ways.
if you're not, because it is a lot of
pushing
work.
past those borders. Yeah, this is good. Okay, well, that's definitely a killer of hospitality, and we're going to take a look at the second one at this point. And this one I think is a little bit more on the nose, a little bit more obvious, but is definitely very important as well. And that is arrogance or being a braggart, right? And just being about your ego, right? Ego is the second killer of hospitality. So Brian, let's talk about that one.
Yeah. And this one was a tough one. So I had not originally written it as ego, and I delivered this hour talk this morning where it would normally be Tuesday's PTSD Tuesday, presentation, training, simulation day, role play all day for our meeting. I wasn't there yesterday, so this was what we did this morning. And I had it written as how I originally wrote it on the treadmill, which is being the center of attention. And I was looking at it on the board as I wrote the three and did a little bit of talking on each one. Before I left the shop today, I looked at it again, just like collecting my thoughts for this episode. And I thought, you know, what is that? And ego is what I came up with and what I sent Nate. But it almost feels a little harsh because oftentimes even us being the center of attention is just us trying to win over or impress the client, not us trying to feed our ego. But the challenge is, like, I love the way C.S. Lewis explained true humility. I believe it was in Mere Christianity, but if you haven't read one of his books, just go do it. I think it was Mere Christianity where he said, when you interact with a truly humble person, you don't catch it because you almost don't even realize they exist, right? True humility is pure focus on the other person. So what's the opposite of humility? I would say ego, right? So being the center of attention, it's still, it's too me focused. And I'm very guilty of this one, and particularly in the earlier days of running calls, but just still, right? I want to entertain. I want to take the burden of the conversation off of the other party because I know what it's like to be crippling shy. And if I see it in other people, I want to relieve them of it, right? So it's trying to be seen and heard instead of making the client feel seen and heard. And Will Guidara talks about that in one of his definitions of hospitality in the book. Hospitality is making the other person seen. right? So if I'm the star of this show, I might be serving them, but I'm not showing them unreasonable hospitality. And there's a real good chance, despite how you think it went, that they don't remember you.
So let's talk that out a little bit, Brian, because we have said on this show in the past, there is great value in the memorabilia quotient, right? Your ability to be remembered, your ability to command your own book of business by return customers who are saying, that Brian Burton guy, that's who I want back. And so I want to balance that out a little bit. I think I know what you're talking about. And I'll take the opposite side of this thing, which is the extreme, right? How can you provide hospitality to someone if every motivation of your heart is about the glorification of self? You can't, right? So to go back to your hotel, Brian, every time room service came up to your room, if they were like, oh yeah, man, this is a really good delivery. Like I really got this food up to you quick, didn't I? That's some top-notch service, right? You know what I'm saying? Hand out, looking for a tip, like braggadocious and
You don't give
arrogant
me the
and
opportunity.
egotistical and all these types of things.
I don't have the opportunity to compliment you because you have taken so much time to compliment yourself. Yep, it makes it difficult.
Exactly. And it does. And there's, there's a phrase in the Bible about like when you give, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And essentially it means like, don't go out parading your charity all over the place and like promoting yourself, like, hey guys, I just want to let everybody know I just made a $10,000 donation to the Red Cross.
Yeah. Jesus said, going ahead, announcing it with trumpets like the hypocrites and the Pharisees do. Oh, I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. And that's kind of exactly what I'm talking about with this egotistical or ego or arrogance is a killer to what we're talking about today in this feeling, because you have sucked all of the feeling out of the room and replaced it with your feelings. The client is told how to feel. They don't get to feel hospitable because they're so focused on you and what you've done and how you've done it and all these types of things. It's contrary to the point, because true hospitality should actually command some level of reciprocation. You're like, Brian, you put on a fantastic show here, man. Like, the food was great, the room was tidy, like whatever industry you're in, like this was all fantastic and amazing. What can I do for you? Right. And we talked about that in multiple shows, including with the Good Doctor of Influence, and that's the
Robert
egotistical
Cialdini
stuff that we're talking about. Exactly. Thank you. That's the stuff that we're talking about when it comes to like how that kills hospitality, because when you effectively are telling the client, and you're not actually telling them word for word, but you're commanding, you're acting, behaving in such a way that to reference Home Alone again, you're holding your hand out, expecting the tip, and even rubbing your fingers together, and the client like gives you a stick of gum because it's ridiculous. Like, come on, brother. But to behave,
there's plenty more where that came from.
In such a way, to behave and conduct yourself in such a way that the tip is not expected, but that the client is compelled internally by the law of reciprocation to say that the level of service you provided me was so high and I felt so cared for and so heard and so listened to and so loved upon and so dealt with white gloves that I need to do something in return above and beyond payment for services rendered. Like, it's more than that. So Brian, coming back to what you were talking about there, with the humble person isn't necessarily remembered, and we've talked about how you want to be remembered. Square that up for us.
Well, it's like, I think it was Stephen Covey who said, no, it wasn't Stephen Covey. Who was that? Maya Angelou. People don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. Like, you can be so humble that you're not memorable, but guess what will be memorable? Their experience with their electrician that day will be the highlight of their week, right? And that is who they'll have to their home over and over and over again. And trust in those situations is built to the point that they're going to do anything you recommend. So, do you really just want to be super remembered, or do you want to be super trusted? Because I'll take trusted all day, because I'm going to make a lot more money. I'm going to serve a lot more clients. I'm going to get a lot more referrals. My reviews are going to be through the roof. And these are the things that we're in business to do, right?
Exactly, Brian. And that's kind of a nice segue into our last one. So we've talked about the first concept of killing these feelings of being loved upon and cared for in this hospitality, in the terms of being overly shy and not willing to push into the areas that are required to make the person feel like they are cared for, and being braggadocious and over the top and self-centered and self-oriented, and how that sucks all of the feeling out of the room and just only allows for you to be present. But then the last one here, and sort of along the lines of what you were talking about, Brian, is how do we conduct ourselves with these behaviors and these intentions day after day, week after week, perfecting and tweaking and getting better, and then having these stories to call back and rely upon to remember, yes, that's right. In this situation, this is what we do and this is how we do it. And then be able to pass that on to the next generation. So Brian, tell us what the third killer is.
Again, third one, like the second one, pretty directly from the book. But the third killer of true hospitality, I would say, is a one-size-fits-all model. And the word I sent Nate for this, as again, I looked at the whiteboard that I trained on this morning and restructured it a bit, was scripting. And if you're part of the blue collar closer team, you've been to a boot camp, or you've just listened to all the Waste No Day episodes where literally every single letter of all of my training is in the show, right? You can piece it all together pretty easily. You know that I have scripts. I have several scripts through the GoPro selling system that my trainees use to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But the entire process isn't scripted, right? I would say in the 5 steps that make up the GoPro selling system, I would say there's 15 total minutes of scripting, if that. The entire rest of the call, service call, sales call, whatever, is filled in by Nate being Nate. It's filled in by Brian being Brian, by you being yourself, and serving and being hospitable and connecting with that human being. And, of course, checking the equipment out, building a relationship. And one size fits all means that every client is going to get the same treatment. Now, as cool as it was of Jonathan to take that plate of food to that client of his and sit down and eat with her, what if he did that for every client? How would the family of 5 receive him standing at their front door with 6 plates of food on 4th of July. Not quite like Betsy Ann, right? So one size does not fit all. True hospitality, according to Will Guidara, the motto is one size fits one. Each person's unique. Each scenario is unique. And how I will treat them is going to be unique. The only size that fits all, and the reason the GoPro system starts and ends with it, is genuine gratitude. That's the only thing that fits all. We love when people are grateful for us. That is just a human thing. So, yeah, treating every customer exactly the same instead of the one size fits one is probably the worst one. If you get over the other two, this one can still kill us. So it's fine to have some scripted parts of your presentation. And I say not fine, mandatory, to make sure you don't go in there and just whatever falls out of your mouth that day is what you say. And I'd say like unreasonable hospitality sounds sexy, like concierge desks at, Nate mentioned the Ritz-Carlton earlier, 5-star restaurants with handwritten notes and a free dessert. And most people will hear it and think, yeah, but not us. We fix pipe and run wires and whatnot. But I think home services might be the single most powerful place for unreasonable hospitality to exist. And I reached out to the author, Will Guidara, and his team today with that in mind and said, I think this would be a great place to spread your message, and we would love to be part of bringing that exact message to the home services, because we are rarely serving people on the day that they're in 11 Madison Avenue, name of the restaurant. I always want to say Ivy for some reason. I think it's 11 Madison Avenue, the restaurant. People are in there like getting engaged, right? Guys are proposing in there. If you're at that restaurant, it's probably a good day. If I'm at your house with my plumbing truck, it's probably not a good day. Good chance it's not your best day. And we're walking into their home when something's broken, leaking, loud, smelly, stressful, probably expensive, and sometimes all of those at the same time, right? And Will talks about hospitality being making someone feel seen and heard, not impressed, not dazzled, not understand how smart you are by vomiting technical jargon all over them, but making them feel seen and heard. And what's wild is that most service techs don't fail at hospitality because they don't care. They fail because of those 3 internal blockers, the stuff going on in our own heads, right? And that's why they needed to be brought out to the surface, recognized, and conquered, right? Don't be shy and timid with this person's home, comfort, maybe even safety on the line. Be real. Like, be real, be forthright, be upfront, be assertive. Maybe a weird place for it, but I was talking to the team about it this morning because I've started extreme ownership again because I am doing 52 books this year. I decided I had so much time to kill the last several days in Myrtle Beach by myself that I got caught up and way ahead of where I needed to be. So I'm doing 52 books in 2026. I would say about 70% are going to be books I've already read that had a big impact on me. Like I wanted to do the 7 Habits again, but that takes so much time. And I also just read it. I just listened to it again in, September, October of 2025. But what Jocko talks about in Extreme Ownership over and over again is default aggressive, right? And aggressive sounds a little pushy for sales, but at least default assertive. But I would say aggressive in that we mean business. We say what needs to be said, as hard as that might be sometimes, and we take things seriously. And the first killer of hospitality and default aggression is shyness, not weakness, not lack of skill, shyness. And I know it sounds weird in a, I don't know, sales communication podcast because everyone thinks maybe like shy people don't end up in the trades, but that's dead wrong. Most mechanically minded people, mechanics and service technicians, are quiet, observant, head down, good human beings generally, honest people for the most part, but very reserved. And we don't wear our hearts on our sleeves. But shyness shows up to the client as hesitation, as doubt in your own mind. You notice something, you don't say it. You feel something, you don't acknowledge it. You think of a thoughtful line to say or conversation to have, but then in your own quiet dialogue, we talk ourselves out of it. And the person who suffers the most is the client. So we walk into a house, we can feel the tension, husband and wife stressed, kids running around loud, dogs barking, water heaters leaking. And we think, man, this feels like a rough morning for me, right? And it probably is, but for them especially. And then your brain goes, don't make it weird, just stick to the job. So we like don't really say anything, right? We don't engage like we could. And that's shyness stealing a real moment to, I would say, connect. An unreasonable hospitality doesn't mean being mean, loud, or overly charismatic. It means being present, as sick of that word as I am, and willing to go first, right? And present in Jonathan's story, meaning he was taking notice of her enough to think, not mean to me, but something's wrong. And, and he's like, I haven't been here long enough to make her hate me yet. Right? So it's probably not that. Maybe there's something more to it, and maybe she needs somebody to chat with. So let's talk to her. And that was being present. That was being quiet enough in my head to understand the situation at hand and really be there for it. And in the home services, that can be as simple as saying, hey, before I look at anything, are you guys okay? This seems like a stressful time, and I just want you to know that we'll slow this down and take care of you if needs be, right? That sentence doesn't require overwhelming confidence, but it does require some courage, because as I was thinking, like, that's not the kind of conversation you're going to have and think they're going to throw the chair at me. It's the kind of conversation you're going to have and think, oh, what if they just start spilling their guts to me and it gets all emotional and they start crying or something? Like, I don't get paid enough for that. That's literally how I feel when someone starts crying. Like, no. Especially if it's my wife. Please stop. So the shy service tech thinks hospitality is about having all the perfect words, and it's not. It could just be about labeling the moment, as Chris Voss would say. It seems like, right? And if 70-80% of our sentences in the home end with a question mark, you don't have to have anything to say. You're just very inquisitive and you let the other person do all the talking. And I'm not a form guy, family, occupation, recreation, material possessions. I think that's just kind of ingenuous. Versus like heaping some real gratitude for that person. But when you see the family photos, military photo, kid in football, we notice it. If you see something that you actually do connect with internally, that's real, not that you're going to make up like form teaches. And then you say nothing, probably missed an opportunity to connect there. Why? Because we don't really want to interrupt, or we don't want to pry, or we don't want to be seen as someone who's just walking around looking at all their pictures or whatever. We don't want to feel awkward. And more importantly, we don't want to be awkward, right? But seen and heard starts with seen. Oh, is that your boy? Right? What position does he play? Simple stuff. You know, my son played football for a few years, so this is going to be easy to chat about. And that's it. And that's the start of unreasonable hospitality in a home in the trades.
It's good stuff, Brian, and I hope that we can get Will on. That would be a fantastic episode, and I would really look forward to hearing from him. So hopefully he responds. But I think we'll leave it here for this episode. And I think there's so much more, really, if you're interested in learning more about the idea of hospitality and how to really go above and beyond, and what does that look like on like a day-to-day basis. His book is fantastic, and we would highly recommend that.
Read the book.
Just a recap on today. So again, if you are looking to deliver hospitality, you need to be staying away from shyness. Like, you need to push through. You need to get into uncomfortable situations. You need to say or don't say, or whatever the situation calls for, that you are lending your ear and your heart to that client. You also cannot have your heart focused on yourself. So it can't be about ego. It can't be about me and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. It's really about them and how they're feeling and how they're feeling about it. Right. And then the last one is staying away from scripting, or really figuring out a way to customize your behavior on every single call. And this is really where the book gets into the meat of things, which is, pardon the pun, but like, how does a restaurant deliver a customized experience to every guest, despite serving food and having to do it in somewhat of a profitable nature, And it was really amazing the ways that they did that. But man, to translate that back into the trades, and I know you guys are out there running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 calls a day, whatever your industry is in, and you feel like you're probably doing the same thing over and over again. And when you get in that rotation of just same old process, same old thing, yes, there's values and strengths to it, but if allowed to be done in such an unconscious way, you are no longer presenting any level of care or empathy or concern or heart towards the client. And you just get in this script where, instead of reading Shakespeare like a professional actor who's going to actually make you feel it, you're just reading Shakespeare like a book, and nobody's really interested. So, are you delivering top-notch hospitality to your clients? That's the question we'll leave you with, and that's where this episode will end. We hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, let us know, share it around, and talk to Will. Send him a message and say, yo, you got to get on this Waste No Day podcast. It's pretty awesome. All right. We'd appreciate that. We'd also appreciate if you leave us some reviews, some 5 stars on all the platforms we love and care for. And we are out there on most of them. And that'd be fantastic. And that would make us feel seen and heard. So that would be greatly appreciated. We will leave you now with our weekly challenge, which continues to be the same: to choose to wake up each and every morning and waste no day.